So there is I'm a big fan. If you know anything about me personally, you know I'm a big fan of the group Muse. I have written many of our stage shows, many of my books. Really, pretty much anything creative. Muse is my muse. Anything creative where I've really spent a lot of time on, I crank their music in my office or on my iPad or whatever. And I listen to Muse when I'm trying to be creative. They put me in the right frame of mind. Their words are brilliant. They are so far ahead of everybody else. Matthew Bellamy is a genius. There are three guys in this group. Matthew is a guy who I think taught himself how to play the piano. The guy could play Rachmaninoff in the middle of a rock, screaming rock ballad. And all of a sudden he'll just stop and play Rachmaninoff. I mean, brilliant stuff. But the words are really what captures me. I've never gone to a Muse concert because I know I wouldn't be welcome. So I've sent my daughters in, and they go to the Muse concert for me and then tell me what it's like. And one of my daughters said, she came back and she's like, Dad, these people should not be Muse fans. I said, what do you mean? She said, we were sitting by a group of people, and they said, one of them said something about, what did he just say in that lyric? And they're like, oh, I don't know what the lyrics are about. I never paid attention. If you don't pay attention to the lyrics of Muse, what are you doing? It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Now, I've said that on the air for years. I was a Muse fan before I think anybody in America really was a Muse fan. I think my daughter was like, one of 12. She turned me on to them years ago, and I've loved them forever. Now they're really popular. They've been very popular in Europe for a very long time, but now they're popular over here, and they've got to do the, hey, let's be on Rolling Stone magazine and Saturday Night Live. First time I mentioned Muse, somebody in the press asked, how do you feel about Glenn Beck being a fan? And they're like, we don't know anything about him. And they're European. I don't really know anything about them, really, except what I read in the magazines. That is very little, because it's a band. Then they came out, I don't know, about a year ago, and they slammed me or something and said that I was a crazy right-wing kook or something. Whatever. But I noticed last week, Rolling Stone, because they were on Saturday Night Live, Rolling Stone had an article with them about their appearance here and everything else and what they were going to do. And, and it started with, how do you feel about Glenn Beck being a fan? I haven't been in the news for how long, really, honestly. Muse, really? That's your first question? And Bellamy went in and said something like, he's a conspiracy theorist and we don't like these right-wing libertarians, and I'm a libertarian, but I'm a Noam Chomsky libertarian, and I'm just trying to think, how are you an anarcho-socialist? How do you get a government big enough to be able to take the money and redistribute it, but you're for anarchy? Please, you Europeans, please. But what killed me was I felt like I was in Goonies. Do you remember that scene in Goonies where the kid with the inhaler was down in the well, and the girlfriend of, I think, the football player was upstairs. She was up. He was up above the well, and they were trying to get out, and the cool guy was. Anyway, I felt like the kid with the inhaler, and I've always been the kid with the inhaler, and that's fine. And here's the cool kids, because this is what happens on playgrounds. The cool kids all get together and they mock the kid with the inhaler, and they want to make sure everybody knows, don't play with that guy. You don't play with that guy, and that's what happened. Rolling Stone magazine, NBC, Saturday Night Live went on an attack with Muse, and Muse played into it, and fine, whatever. I don't really care. I really don't care. I wrote an open letter to Bellamy as a fan. And the first one that I wrote was, it had made some points, and I wrote a little bit about Goonies, and I thought, this is ridiculous what I'm doing. If I'm going to write anything, I should write something that people can understand who live in their world. Something that will say, well, wait a minute. Why are we playing this game? What do you even mean? I just posted it on TheBlaze and GlennBeck.com. Open letter to Muse and Matthew Bellamy. Here it is. Dear Matthew, I read your comments in The Guardian via Rolling Stone last week, and I feel with a little work we could better understand each other. As uncomfortable as it might be for you, I still play your songs loudly. To me, your songs are anthems that beg for choruses of unity and pose the fundamental question facing the world today: can man rule himself? In the Venn diagram of American politics, where the circles of crimson and blue overlap, there's a place where you and I meet. It's a place where the guys who cling to their religion, rights, and guns connect with the godless, clenched fist, tattooed guys. You seem to have a pretty good grasp of comparative U.S. and European politics, but maybe there's a pattern that you're underestimating. Throughout history, leaders have used music to lull young people into a sense of security and euphoria. They've used artists to create the illusion that they can run a country that keeps all the good and wipes out all the bad. Think Zurich, 1916. Think artists getting behind guys like Lenin and Trotsky. Think of pop culture's role in the Arab Spring. The youth rises up, power structures crumble, and worst leaders are inserted. America, on the other hand, doesn't rely on leaders. We rely on the individual. Our country was built on the principles of mercy, justice, and charity. We ultimately believe that man left alone is good. That's the primary reason I disagree with Chomsky and the others that you tout. American libertarians understand that smaller government gives people freedom, the freedom to earn or lose, eat or starve, own or sell. The potential for wild success and happiness is tempered by an equal chance of failure, and it is up to the individual to take control of their destiny. This has been the debate since the founding of America, one that has often gotten confused, even during the Revolution, a period filled with the greatest minds to ever discuss the idea of freedom. There were the divisions that continue today: Robespierre or George Washington, Occupy Wall Street or the Tea Party. Thomas Paine didn't see the difference either. Sometimes the difference is too subtle for most. Yet the question is an easy one. Do you believe man can rule himself? Or does he need some ruling over him to force him to be good and force him to be charitable? That's the fundamental divide, and everything else follows. Even though faith was important for American patriots, none of them forced Paine to believe. He chose his course, and in the end is remembered as a critical patriot in establishing man's first real freedom. They understood that we don't have to be all in the same boat, but rather all focused on a star chart. Are we headed towards freedom or despotism? The power that American libertarians like me want to pull down is the power that limits the individual's right to roam and create. Matthew, I realize that converts are pretty hard to come by when the stakes are so high and the spotlight is so bright. But I just want to thank you for singing words that resonate with man in his struggle to be free. I wish I could leave well enough alone and just be quiet. Quote, but I've had recurring nightmares that I was loved for who I am and missed the opportunity to be a better man. End quote. Good luck with your new record, Glenn. I would imagine they'll never read it, nor will they care. But what we have to do at this point is start trying to find the connections to each other. We can't divide ourselves anymore. And there are too many people that we can convince to come in. They're standing on the wrong side. And we agree with a lot of what they say, some of which we don't. Some of which they'll never agree with us. That's okay. Do they believe in the freedom of man? Do they believe in self-governance? If they do, we need to do everything we can to reach out to them. By the way, the most powerful tool you can use for an election is friendship. A neighbor, somebody who, if there's some problem in the neighborhood, you're going to go over to their house and help, or they've been over to your house and help. There are people that still are just on the fence and they're not really sure. May I strongly suggest that instead of having, the union members organize and bus people into your neighborhood, that you just stop by a neighbor's house and just talk to them about how critical it is for their vote. And even if they decide to vote for the other person, let them know how important it is that they vote.